Hulk!
Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is its own worst enemy. The core of it, the actual fighting, is inventive, flashy, and relatively accessible, yet much of the surrounding elements feel flaccid. Rough character models and a throwaway story mode are both glaring sore spots that could turn away prospective players. Those able to mount such hurdles and put in some time will learn just how enjoyable the game can be. Several of the previous Marvel vs. Capcom conventions have been completely cut out. The teams are scaled down from 3v3 to 2v2, and assists are removed in favor of Infinity Stone powers. There's even an auto combo system executed by mashing a single attack. While it's easy to assume that such revisions diminish the complexity the series built its reputation on, Infinite manages to provide a strong case for such radical decisions. Commonalities between characters are what make the basics so simple to grasp. Motions for special moves and hyper combos are similar between characters. Everyone can launch an opponent into the air in the same way, and in general, light attacks chain into heavy attacks. It's the specifics where things get interesting. How quickly a character moves, the state their attacks put an enemy in, and the strength of each individual ability ensure quite a lot to differentiate them. The game provides so much flexibility with its fighting system that one of the biggest joys is just jumping into training mode to see what works and what doesn't, such as the best time to switch in a partner and continue a lengthy combo. Infinite makes it easier to get into the most rewarding part of fighting games, thinking through the ways abilities work together while providing enough variety in those solutions so that the chase is satisfying. Infinity Stones are the real star, however, and offer some of the game's craziest moments. Each of the 6 stones have 2 functions, an Infinity Surge and Infinity Storm. An Infinity Surge can be used at almost any time and builds up meter for the Infinity Storm. Think of Infinity Surges almost as a bonus move. With the Reality Stone, you can launch a basic projectile, while the Time Stone gives a special dash that can pass through opponents. An Infinity Storm is basically its own super attack, and it's here that things truly get nuts. Once your stone's meter is above 50%, you can unleash the Infinity Storm. With the Soul Stone, you not only revive a dead teammate, but for a brief period, control both of your characters at the same time. The Space Stone traps the opponent in a small box where they have extremely limited movement, and they cannot switch out to another character. Infinity Stones are a clever comeback mechanic, and they can open up even more room for creativity. A desperate Infinity Storm can completely turn a match around, but at the same time, it always feels less swingy than the X-Factor mechanic in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Regardless of how powerful they are, Infinity Stones are still generally situational and require a fair amount of consideration from the player. Otherwise, they'll either be severely punished or simply wasted. In that sense, they're just another tool, and since there are 6 stones, each with its own abilities, determining the best stone to match with your characters is a big decision. There are even combos that aren't available unless you have a specific stone. Infinity Stones take an already complex game and add so many more available paths for each character, giving Infinite a distinct flavor while still keeping it rooted in the visually frantic Marvel vs. Capcom style.
How was that?
Looking at the game's roster, it's hard not to feel a twinge of disappointment. Series favorites like Wolverine, Magneto, and Storm are notably absent, and so much of the roster is carried over from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. At least, the new characters are put to good use. Gamora and Jeddah are particularly great, each with a spark of personality. Gamora flips around the screen, blasting away with twin pistols and slashing in all directions with melee weapons. The cackling Jeddah is also quite agile, whipping his scythe around and diving from the sky like some sort of demonic missile. While it would be nice to have more characters, or at least a greater number of oddballs like Phoenix Wright and Amaterasu, we found ourselves enjoying more characters than expected.
Right there! Turn it, man! Move your feet!
Far less forgivable is the way some of these characters look. Dante from Devil May Cry looks like a bootleg action figure rather than the fearsome and charming son of Sparta. The same is true of the dead-eyed Chris Redfield, who is supposed to be a calm and collected leader, but who looks so off that it's hard to take him seriously. While some fare better than others, there's no mistaking that a lot of the roster feels like a pale imitation of these characters, rather than a convincing representation, undermining what should otherwise be an exciting collaboration of beloved heroes and villains.
Oh no. Nah, bad idea.
Marvel vs. Capcom goes out of its way to tell an elaborate, original story with plenty of cutscenes, but it's an effort that's almost entirely wasted. The story itself lacks anything to get attached to, carelessly throwing out tired jokes and struggling to find compelling reasons for these characters to get together. The fights are similarly bankrupt. Many matches have you squaring off against generic soldiers, while the biggest, most elaborate enemies are relegated to cutscenes rather than actual battles. The story mode doesn't even do a good job of teaching players the game's nuances, merely introducing concepts rather than offering interesting scenarios where those concepts can be applied.
You have doomed yourselves.
One area where Infinite is noticeably improved from its predecessor is network stability. We've had little issue finding quality online matches, something that's especially important in a game as hectic as Infinite. While the various modes are relatively standard, ranked, casual, lobbies, and a beginner's league, each works well. Although it's difficult to say what kind of life the game will have in the long run, the stable infrastructure is appreciated.
Eliminating the target, that's my job.
Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is a hard game to pin down, a task made even more difficult by the plentiful competition of other recently released fighting games. It's easy to see the areas where the game could have been so much more, an especially frustrating exercise when you consider how much it gets right. If the most important part of a fighting game is the joy you can have during an individual match, then Infinite manages to capture that. Hopefully, future updates can smooth over some of its roughest aspects so the game can shine more brightly. Easy Allies reviews are made possible by generous viewers just like you. If you like what you see, check out patreon.com/easyallies to see our other videos, and consider becoming a patron to help us make more.